Imagine volunteering for a medical study because you need money. You trust the doctors. You trust the institution. You assume there are rules. But what if the people running the experiment never saw you as a patient at all? What if they saw you as material? Throughout history, scientists, governments, and institutions have crossed lines that should never have been crossed. They tested drugs, diseases, radiation, and psychological techniques on people who often had no idea what was happening. These are the most disturbing human experiments in history. Number 7. The Holmesburg prison experiments. In 1951, dermatologist Albert Kligman entered Holmesburg prison in Philadelphia and saw an opportunity. The prison population was mostly poor, incarcerated men with very little power to say no. Over the next 2 decades, pharmaceutical companies, chemical companies, and even the U.S. military paid for experiments inside the prison. The men were offered small amounts of money to take part. For some of them, that money mattered. But the real question is whether they were ever able to give truly informed consent. Researchers tested everything from skin creams and detergents to experimental drugs and powerful chemical compounds. Some prisoners later described painful reactions, rashes, and long-term health fears. The disturbing part is that this was not hidden in a secret bunker during a war. It happened in an American prison for years, in an environment where the people being tested had almost no freedom to begin with. The prison became a place where human beings were treated less like patients and more like available surfaces for research. Number 6. The human radiation experiments. After World War II, the world entered the atomic age. Radiation was new, powerful, and terrifying. Scientists wanted to understand what it could do to the human body, but in some cases, the people involved did not fully understand what was being done to them. From the 1940s into the 1970s, U.S. government agencies sponsored or supported a wide range of radiation-related studies. Some involved hospital patients, some involved military personnel, some involved people who were already vulnerable because of illness, poverty, or their position in society. Decades later, reports of these experiments became so serious that President Clinton created an advisory committee to investigate them. The committee had to go through old records, secret files, and forgotten research programs. The fact that a government investigation was needed decades later tells you everything about how little the subjects knew at the time. This is what makes these experiments disturbing. Radiation was invisible. A person could be exposed without seeing a weapon, without understanding the risk, and without knowing whether anyone was truly looking out for them. Number 5. The Guatemala syphilis experiments. In the late 1940s, U.S. researchers carried out a series of studies in Guatemala involving syphilis and other sexually transmitted infections. The goal was to study prevention and treatment, but the way it was done crossed an unimaginable line. People in prisons, military facilities, and psychiatric institutions were involved. Many of them were unable to give meaningful consent. Some were deliberately exposed to infection as part of the research. For decades, the public barely knew the full story. Then, in 2010, the U.S. government formally apologized to Guatemala. President Barack Obama called it a deeply troubling event, and officials admitted that the studies violated basic ethics. Think about that for a second. These were not people choosing to join a study after being told the risks. They were people placed in institutions where other people had control over their lives. The experiment showed exactly why medical research needs strict rules. Without consent, without transparency, and without accountability, science can become a weapon used against the people it is supposed to help. Number 4. MK-Ultra. During the Cold War, the CIA became obsessed with one question: could the human mind be controlled? In 1953, the CIA launched a secret program called MK-Ultra. The program involved research into drugs, hypnosis, interrogation techniques, and psychological manipulation. Some of the studies were carried out with willing participants, but others involved people who had no idea they were part of an experiment. In some cases, individuals were given substances, including LSD, without being told. The researchers wanted to observe how people reacted under stress, confusion, fear, or altered states of mind. The program was so secretive that many records were destroyed in 1973. That means the full story may never be known. When details finally reached the public, the scandal was massive. The idea that an intelligence agency had experimented on unaware citizens sounded like something from a conspiracy movie. But this part was real, and it revealed a frightening truth. When secrecy becomes more important than ethics, institutions can convince themselves that almost anything is justified. If you're enjoying the video so far, because the stories that get buried in history are often the ones that tell us the most about what power can do when nobody is watching. Number 3. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. The Tuskegee Study is one of the clearest examples of betrayal in medical history. It began in 1932 in Alabama. Hundreds of black men were enrolled in a government study about syphilis. They were told they were being treated for something called bad blood, but they were not given proper informed consent. The study was originally supposed to last only months. Instead, it continued for 40 years. Then penicillin became widely available as an effective treatment for syphilis. At that point, the ethical answer should have been obvious. The men should have been told. They should have been offered treatment. They were not. Researchers wanted to keep observing the disease untreated. The men were left believing they were receiving care while the people running the study continued collecting data. The study only ended after it was exposed in 1972. By then, the damage had already reached far beyond the original participants. It affected their families, their community, and trust in the entire medical system. That loss of trust did not disappear when the study ended. It lasted for generations. Number 2. Unit 731. During World War II, Japan operated a secret military research unit in occupied China known as Unit 731. Officially, it was connected to disease prevention and water purification. In reality, it became connected to biological warfare and human experimentation. Prisoners were used in experiments involving disease, extreme conditions, and the effects of biological weapons. The victims included Chinese civilians, prisoners of war, and others caught under Japanese occupation. What makes Unit 731 especially disturbing is how long much of the world knew almost nothing about it. After the war, some of the people involved avoided prosecution. Information from the unit was reportedly treated as valuable by other governments because of what it revealed about biological warfare. So instead of facing justice, parts of the program were buried under secrecy. The victims did not get the attention they deserved. Their stories were pushed aside by politics, war, and the race for military knowledge. Unit 731 is a reminder that scientific knowledge is not automatically good. Knowledge without humanity can become one of the most dangerous things on Earth. Number 1. Nazi medical experiments. At number 1 are the medical experiments carried out by Nazi doctors during the Holocaust. In concentration camps, prisoners were subjected to cruel experiments without consent. Jewish people, Romani people, prisoners of war, people with disabilities, and many others were treated as if their lives had no value. The experiments had different goals. Some were designed to help German soldiers survive extreme conditions. Others tested diseases, drugs, or methods of mass sterilization. And some were driven by Nazi racial ideology, including experiments on twins and children. But calling them medical experiments can almost make them sound clinical. They were crimes. The people involved were not volunteers. They were prisoners trapped in a system built on persecution, forced labor, and mass murder. After the war, the world learned more about what had happened inside the camps. Nazi doctors were put on trial in what became known as the Doctors' Trial. One of the most important results was the Nuremberg Code. The code established a basic principle that seems obvious now. Voluntary consent is essential in human research. No experiment is worth taking away someone's humanity. That lesson came at an unimaginable cost. These stories are difficult to hear because they are not just about the past. They are about what happens when power becomes more important than people. When institutions stop asking, "Is this right?" and only ask, "Can we do it?" Science has saved countless lives. Medical research has created treatments that once seemed impossible. But science only deserves trust when it respects the people behind the data. Because every number in a study is a person. And history has shown us what happens when the people in charge forget that. These 7 experiments happened in completely different places. Some took place inside prisons. Others happened in hospitals, military facilities, concentration camps, and secret government programs. But they all had one thing in common. The people being experimented on were treated like they mattered less than the information researchers wanted to collect. Some were lied to, some were never asked for permission, some had no real way to say no, and some were trapped in systems where nobody was coming to protect them. The worst part is that these stories are not only remembered because of how cruel they were, they are remembered because they changed the rules forever. Informed consent, independent ethics boards, the right to refuse. These protections exist because history showed what happens when science has no limits. Which experiment shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a like and subscribe for more entertaining videos about strange history, bizarre science, mysteries, psychology, and unbelievable true stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.